Not every argument is a disagreement. Some arguments carry a wound looking for somewhere to land. Some carry a sentence that has been waiting years for permission. And yet, you said it. You watched it land. You saw the face across from you change, and you told yourself it was only the heat of the moment, as though heat has ever unsaid anything. The room went quiet, the two of you moved on, and something between you never came all the way back. Today I want to show you something the church rarely talks about, because we teach believers to control their anger, and almost never teach them to control their sentences. We are going to talk about 7 things Christians say during arguments that keep doing damage long after the argument is finished. Not 7 things that make you a bad person. 7 sentences that go on working after you stop meaning them. By the end, you will recognize at least one of them in your own mouth. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry." Most Christians read that as a rule about how long an argument is allowed to last. But very few notice what God did not say. He did not forbid the anger. He did not ask you to feel less. He drew a line around what anger may do while it is in the room and put a clock on it. The feeling was never the sin. Anger is a temperature. Words are a decision. God judged the second one. We keep apologizing for the first. 1. Never hand someone the words always, and never in an argument. That is not an accusation. It is a verdict on a person's character, delivered inside a sentence that began as one about dishes. Let me be very clear before I say what I'm about to say. Nothing here says you may not be angry, and what you are angry about is probably real. Most of us believe an exaggeration is harmless because both people know it is one. We assume they hear the frustration and discount the word. They do not. The frustration fades by morning. The word stays. You did not describe what they did. You told them what they are. I remember a man describing one sentence his wife said during an argument 20 years earlier. He could not remember what it was about. He remembered the sentence exactly, including where he was standing. She apologized within the hour and meant it. He forgave her. He simply never stopped hearing it. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18 says, "The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." Notice that Scripture does not call them cruel words. It calls them reckless. Most of the damage done inside a Christian home is not done on purpose. Here is what many believers overlook. You are not only arguing with the person in front of you tonight, you are writing something they will quote in 20 years. 2. Never say "I am fine" when you are not. It sounds like restraint. It is a door being closed from the inside while the other person is still talking. Many sincere Christians treat this as the godly option. You did not raise your voice. You did not say anything unkind. You swallowed it, and swallowing it felt like patience. But there is a real difference between choosing not to say something and pretending there is nothing to say. The first is self-control. The second is a lie told with a calm face. I have watched a household run on that one sentence for years. Nobody shouted. There was no slammed door and no raised voice anywhere in that home. There were simply 2 people answering fine, and a growing list of things that had never once been said out loud. When it came apart, the hardest part was that neither one could point to a single argument that had caused it. Nothing had been said. That was the problem. Colossians chapter 3, verse 9 says, "Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices." Paul does not exempt the polite lies. He does not carve out the ones we tell to keep an evening calm. The deeper lesson is this: silence is not the same as peace. Peace is what happens after something is said. Silence is only what happens instead. 3. Never bring other people into a room they were never invited into. The moment you say "everyone else agrees with me," you have stopped having an argument and started conducting a trial. Most believers do this without any sense of doing wrong. You were hurt. You needed perspective. So you talk to a friend, a sister, a small group. That may well have been wise. But there is an enormous difference between seeking counsel and collecting witnesses. Counsel changes you before you go back into the room. Witnesses are gathered to be used inside it. I once sat with two believers working through a disagreement that should have taken an evening. It took 2 years. By the time they sat down together, neither was speaking only for themselves. Each had spent months explaining it to people who loved them, and every one of those people agreed. They were no longer two people trying to understand each other. They were two delegations. As far as I know, nobody involved ever said a cruel word. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 says, "If your brother or sister sins against you, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you." Notice where Jesus set the boundary. He fixed the size of the room before he said one word about the outcome. Here is what most believers overlook. Every person you recruit is one more person the reconciliation must be explained to. If this message is already making you hear your own voice, brother, sister, please subscribe to this channel and write in the comments, "I will guard my words in anger." Now, let us keep going, because the next 4 are the ones the church almost never names out loud. 4, never put God's name on your side of an argument. The moment you say the Lord showed me, the conversation is over. You did not win it. You ended it. Many believers do this sincerely. You prayed about it. You believe God gave you clarity. But notice what the sentence does. It does not offer your position. It removes the other person's right to hold one, because disagreeing with you means disagreeing with God. I knew a man who closed every difficult conversation in his home this way. He was no fraud. He prayed more than most people I know. But his family stopped bringing him anything they were not willing to lose, because you could not lose an argument to him without losing one to heaven. Exodus chapter 20, verse 7 says, "You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name." Most Christians apply that verse to swearing. Very few apply it to winning. The deeper lesson is this: if God has spoken to you, it will survive being said as your own opinion. 5, never test love inside an argument. "If you really love me, you would" is not a request. It is an invoice, and the other person is asked to pay before the sentence is finished. Most of us reach for this from a genuine place. You are not trying to manipulate anybody. You are frightened, and fear goes looking for proof. But a person who agrees because you question their love has not agreed with you. They have paid a fee to stop being accused, and something quiet is subtracted each time. I remember a woman who told me she had spent 9 years proving she loved her husband. She could not name one occasion when he had been cruel. He had simply asked her in every disagreement to demonstrate something she had never stopped feeling. 1 John chapter 4, verse 18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. Love that has to be proven on demand is not being tested. It is being punished." Here is what many believers overlook. Nobody has ever been argued into affection. I need to be very careful and very clear here, because this next sentence is the easiest one to misread. 6, never use the exit as a weapon. Maybe we should just end this. Maybe you would be happier without me. If you have said that in anger, you are not the first believer who has, and nothing here says anything is over. It is about what those words are for. They are not a decision. A decision is made calmly, on a different day, in a different tone. Said in anger, they are a lever, and the lever works. The other person concedes, and for an hour you both feel closer. I once knew a couple who had used that sentence maybe 4 times across a long marriage. They are still together and not unhappy. But she told me part of her had never fully unpacked. But something has been spent. A door that was never in the room is now in it permanently, and every argument after that night is held in sight of it. James chapter 3 verse 6 says, "The tongue also is a fire. It corrupts the whole body and sets the whole course of one's life on fire." James is not describing a temper. He is describing how far one sentence travels. The deeper lesson is this: you cannot threaten to leave and stay all the way. 7, and this is the one that matters most. Never say, "At least I never raise my voice." This is the most dangerous sentence on the list because this one is mine, and it may be yours. It is the argument you win by being calm. You did not shout. You said nothing you would have to apologize for. You stayed reasonable while the other person came apart, and afterward you felt something you would never call pride. Composure is a real virtue, and I am not taking it from you, but it makes an excellent hiding place. A quiet voice carries contempt perfectly well, and contempt delivered gently is still contempt. It just cannot be quoted back afterward. I have watched believers, and I include myself here, use calm the way other people use volume, never raising my voice, never losing control of a sentence, and underneath it, a steady private verdict that the other person was the problem. Nothing about that looks like anger. It looks like maturity. Luke chapter 18 verse 11 records a man praying, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people." He was not shouting either. He was the calmest man in the temple. Here's the question. When an argument ends, are you relieved or satisfied? Relief is what peace feels like. Satisfaction is what winning feels like. And you cannot win an argument against someone you love. I want to say something important before we close. This message is not about becoming a person who monitors every sentence and never says anything real. You are going to argue. Believers argue. Some of the healthiest homes I know are loud, and some of the quietest ones are dying. Nothing on this list makes you a bad Christian, and none of it is unforgivable. Most of these sentences were said by tired people who loved someone and were not at their best that evening. Go back and say so. If this message put a sentence of your own in front of you today, I want you to do one thing right now. Write in the comments, "Lord, hold my tongue when my heart is loud." And if you know someone who keeps winning arguments and losing the person across from them, share this video with them today. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep growing together in biblical wisdom every single week. God bless you, my brother, my sister. Until next time.